Hello, good evening, welcome to this absolutely beautiful auditorium. We are going to be your hosts for this, hopefully, what will shape up to be an unbelievable evening here. My name is Ben Francavilla. I am a 7th and 8th grade English teacher at the Whittier School in Everett.
And I'm Joe Lento, also a 7th and 8th grade teacher at the Whittier School in Everett. Originally, when this event came about, Ben and I had applied to present, but Cove didn't pick us. She thought our talents would be better used as MCs, so hopefully she was right.
Yeah, hopefully. Keep your fingers crossed. But no, Joe and I, in all seriousness, we've been really proud to be part of the 5DP, really since its inception, which there's always a debate on this, and I think we determined it was around 2012. And since then, the two of us, we've created year-long plans, we've designed UBDs, assessment development team members, and then this year we are part of the teacher advisory board. So we like to say that we sort of bring a wealth of experience and knowledge of all that the 5DP has to offer. And again, we're so very excited to be here and what we hope is going to be the start of an annual event.
So tonight, we're here to get some educators together to celebrate and share ideas, recognize the great work that is happening within our school districts. We hope that you enjoy the presentations and stick around for the reception afterwards, where we will be giving away raffle prizes.
Now, before I introduce Cove Davis, I've been instructed to all the Twitter files out there to encourage you to tweet hashtag 5DP, and I believe that's called a handle. I'm not quite sure, but at 5DP EDU. So for all of you out there, go ahead and tweet. Now, to introduce Cove, it's a real pleasure. She is a former principal from Chelsea. She's now the 5DP executive administrator, which means that she's the one who is tasked with the formidable job of organizing everyone within the 5 districts. Thankfully, Cove always seems to make it look easy.
Everybody in the room tonight has had the pleasure of working with Cove over the past 5 years, and we know that Cove really sees the value of getting all 5 districts together and on the same page, and she really cares about getting it right every time. And now we are happy to turn it over to Cove Davis.
Thank you so much, Ben and Joe, and thank you everyone for being here. This is an amazing turnout, far better than we imagined. I am Cove Davis. I'm the executive administrator of the 5-district partnership. I took this job 5 years ago, and I remember when I took the job, I ran into Carol Murphy, Mrs. Murphy to those Chelsea people, and Mrs. Murphy said, "Why on earth would you take that job? That job is impossible, and it's not going to work out." And fortunately for the 5DP and for me, I decided that I had taken the job and I was going to do it. I definitely could not let Mary Burke or any of the other superintendents down. But getting to know these 5 districts and the teachers and educators within the 5 districts has truly been an amazing experience. And bringing our partnership from a really small, trying to figure out if we have a logo and all that stuff to what it is today has been an amazing experience. A couple weeks ago, I had the chance to be a judge for the capstone project for the 5DP UMass CAGS cohort. We had 16 educators from the 5 districts, as well as our 2 DSTAC partners who graduated with their CAGS. And it was a really phenomenal experience to see the projects and the connections that they had made, serving similar students, but in such different districts. We have many similarities, but we have many differences as well. And so I think the promise of the 5DP is really in that sharing and that collaboration. And it really had me thinking about the 5DP as a family. A family, if it's anything like mine, is sometimes messy, sometimes imperfect. We learn from our mistakes, we can celebrate our things, and we keep making course corrections as we go. And I think building and changing the partnership has been something like a family. And I'm so glad to have everybody here for this celebration tonight to see the hard work of collaboration and the amazing work that's going on in our districts. It truly is phenomenal to see those posters. I think that half the people with posters out there probably didn't sign up because we have more and they're amazing. So thank you so much for those people. Just like any family, we have people from our community that have helped us and supported us along the way. And I want to take this chance, since we don't get it very often, to thank some of those people. I wanted to thank the superintendents for the vision they had to put this together and to persevere through things that were difficult for them and difficult for the partnership. I want to thank the DESE and the DSAC team in particular for supporting us along the way and for always advocating for the 5DP. We also have some partners from outside that have funded us, and that has been really instrumental for the partnership. So I wanted to thank the Boston Foundation and Elizabeth Pauley for seeing potential in the 5DP and funding us early on, and also for thank the New Venture Fund and the folks at the Rennie Center for supporting us in our next stage of our partnership, and also for funding this evening as well. And most important, I think it's important to thank the educators and the people that make the 5DP the 5DP. Thank you for doing the hard work every day in the classrooms with our students and for being here tonight. I'm really excited to see the rest of the posters and to hear the presentations tonight. So without further ado, I want to welcome Althea Terenzi. She's an ELA teacher at Revere High School. We selected Althea to go first because her theme sets up the evening very well. She is talking about how she pushes her students to take intellectual risks in her classroom. Each teacher you will hear from on stage tonight has also taken some risks by trying new ideas, by seeing a problem, and by trying to solve it, or thinking outside the box. So without further ado, let's welcome Althea.
I am thrilled to welcome you to the first ever 5-district partnership showcase. And as a sort of frame or introduction to the amazing work our colleagues from around the partnership will be presenting, I'd like to talk about something I've come to really value in my classroom, and that is taking risks. I'd like to first begin with a story. When I was in high school, I took AP Literature. I'd always been really good with English, but one thing I really struggled with was poetry. In this class, we read a lot of poetry. It seemed to me like secret code, a foreign language that was somewhat familiar, yet still indecipherable. What's more is I was a painfully shy, modest, and awkward teenager, which made it somewhat uncomfortable for me when certain themes arose in class. Themes that seemed easy for my classmates to grasp, but for me, I felt like I was just missing the boat. Our teacher would assign poem explications for homework, and one day when he assigned Robert Frost's poem, Birches, I was determined to find every double entendre, innuendo, every Freudian symbol that I possibly could, and I was sure they must be there. And I did find them, and I was very thorough in my explication. I felt I had finally unlocked the secrets of a poem. As luck would have it, the teacher asked me, shy, awkward me, to read my explication aloud to class first. My cheeks burned, much as they do now when I think you'll go home and Google the poem and know what I was thinking. But I put my head down and read from my paper. When I was done, it was like one of those slow motion moments. I looked up. My teacher removed his glasses and looked me in the eye and said, "Robert Frost does not write about that kind of thing." It was his way of saying sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a birch tree is just a birch tree. Thinking in a new way about this poem had felt risky to me. And writing about it also felt risky. And sharing my new and risky ideas aloud had felt extremely risky. And maybe my interpretation was wrong, but I felt I had just fallen flat on my face. After my utter public humiliation, I decided I must not be as good at English as I thought I was, and I should probably avoid poetry at all costs. I applied to nursing programs instead of literature ones, because my big takeaway was that it was better to play it safe. Now, it's a long story about how I came back around to English and how I came to love poetry after all. But that old experience still informs how I approach poetry and how I try to foster a safe space in my classroom for taking intellectual risks. First of all, I want my students to appreciate and not fear poetry, and I want them to be better readers of poetry. But even more importantly, I want to build their confidence as learners and sharers across the board. I want them to be comfortable engaging in thoughtful discussion, to avoid judgment, to try out ideas and then try others if those ideas don't work. I want them not to give in to the temptation of Google to find the right answers. In essence, I believe the tolerance for intellectual risk will pay dividends in all aspects of their lives. Because in high school, this feels like a risk. And this feels like a risk. And so does this. And even this. We can't teach confidence and resilience, but we can scaffold it by offering opportunities to take risk, validating struggle, and rewarding perseverance. We all know that it's when all students are engaged in participating that the real magic happens and the real learning happens. So how do I do it? I begin by sharing my personal stories of embarrassment or failure with my students. I tell these kinds of stories early and often, and thankfully I have a large store of them. I also let them see me struggle. I try not to skip passages of Hamlet that give me a hard time, for example. I use poems in class that mystify me. Together we work through these texts with varying degrees of success, but the message I try to relay is that these are challenges. I'm upfront about the fact that I'm also a learner in the classroom, that I too benefit from the insights of my students, that it's my students, not professors or textbooks or the internet, who have helped me puzzle out the most challenging literary texts. For example, this student's annotations of a passage I never paid much attention to showed me a key way of understanding the witch's motivations for messing with Macbeth. One great epiphany for me in my journey back to poetry came from reading literary theorist Victor Shklovsky's notion of defamiliarization. Essentially, he says that a poet's job is to be difficult in order to awaken readers out of our comfort and complacency. The theory resonates with my students too, because man, once you tell students that someone is trying to be difficult, it's on. I am telling you that this information goes a long way with them. First, it validates confusion. Yes, the poem is difficult, and it is intentionally difficult. So now it's no longer about whether we are smart enough to get it, but how hard we are willing to work to get it. We engage with a challenge instead of disengage out of frustration and self-doubt. Another big influence on my approach to poetry was a teacher from North Carolina, whom I met, Danny Lawrence, who told me to stop trying to make high school students into English majors and just get them to like reading. He came up with this assignment, which I promptly stole and which has had huge impacts on my students. I call it simply the weekly poem response. I give students a packet of about a dozen poems per month and tell them they must hand in a one-page typed response to one of them each Tuesday. Here's an example of one of those poems. I tell them the responses can be analytical, personal, stream of consciousness, an entire page of just questions, anything. They get a 100 as long as it mentions the title and author and is formatted the way that I want. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking that this is essentially an easy A and students will take advantage, but I cannot overstate the fervor with which students respond to this assignment. It is not uncommon for me to receive an entire response on a poem's punctuation, or a 5-page response in response to a 5-line poem. If I asked my students to write a formal essay about this poem, I'd get one of a few things. Some really bad papers that try too hard, regurgitation of what the internet has to say about this poem, or an all-out revolt. But with the poem response, I learned more about my students' lives, goals, thinking, and abilities than from any other assignment. I also learned a lot about the poems, thanks to the students' insights. I respond to each of them in a comment at the end, and in this way, we establish trust and space to be rewarded for taking risks and putting ideas that seem kooky out there, come what may. They get more comfortable with poems and lose that fear of getting it wrong. Their responses range from the intensely personal to questioning, to the analytical, to insightful and poetic, to the just plain odd. That's real. And here's what happens. I see my students begin to take risks in other forums. They participate more in class discussion. These are Harkness discussion maps from the same class at the beginning and again at the end of the year. They begin to challenge each other and me and offer alternate solutions or interpretations. When students know they can take risks and don't have to live or die by them, my classes become much more interesting and dynamic, and everyone benefits from this kind of openness and this sharing of ideas. Confidence improves. I want to shout out here to my amazing colleague, Sarah Collin, who organizes our school's Poetry Out Loud competition, which is another example of risk-taking through poetry. My class becomes more student-centered, and the discussions become less superficial. Poetry, not so anxiety-inducing anymore, maybe even fun. Because who wants to live in a world where a birch tree is only ever just a birch tree? Tonight's event embraces innovation and the risks we take as educators. Without exception, the incredible people you will hear from tonight have dared and tried to do something new and exciting, and they asked their students to push their own boundaries. They met roadblocks but persevered. Thankfully, they found the support for their initiatives in their buildings and districts, some space to take a risk. And I'm sure you will agree that students and colleagues alike are the greatest beneficiaries of those risks. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Althea. That reminds me of when I was an English teacher at the high school, and I have a snow globe on my desk, and it's from a student who's actually a man now in his 30s, married with kids, successful. He said to me one day, you know, Miss Keenan, I love coming to your class, but can we just read? Because sometimes a light is just a light. So on the snow globe, he literally wrote, I made it through high school because of you. A light is just a light. Remember that. So I shake that up every once in a while when things get too deep. My name is Carol Keenan, Interim Assistant Superintendent for Malden Public Schools. It gives me great pleasure to introduce one of our math coach extraordinaires, Mr. Chris Fitzpatrick, who's going to be speaking tonight about math discourse and accountable talk in the mathematical classroom. Chris?
All right, here we go. Thank you. All right, math discourse. If there's one thing I kind of want you to leave with tonight, it's that an agreement that math discourse isn't just a show and tell discussion. And what I really mean by that is, when I used to teach in the classroom, I used to have students post their work on the board. I used to have them come up to the board and solve problems. And I used to think, well, they're doing the talking, right? So that's what discourse looks like. And I've come to find really that that's not exactly the case, because discourse is way more than that. It's about reasoning, it's about students being able to ask questions of each other when they're solving problems, it's about students agreeing and disagreeing with each other, and it's about using that accountable talk that we see so prevalent in ELA classrooms, but not so much in math classrooms. So, NCTM defines discourse as being shaped by the tasks in which students engage, as well as the nature of the learning environment. And a few years ago when I was teaching, I used to think that the best way to engage students in math and make it entertaining and interesting is to sing and dance in front of them. I used to tell jokes all the time. I'd be up there running around like an absolute crazy person because I figured if I was having fun, they'd have fun with the math. It turns out that's not exactly the case, because at the end of the day, I'd always ask them and say, "Oh, what do you think? How did it go?" And the answer I'd frequently get is, "Well, Mr. Fitz, you're an awesome teacher. We think you're great. That's cool. Well, how'd the lesson go?" And they'd say, "When are we going to really need this anyway?" And that kind of dug into me, right? Because I was passionate about this, and I wanted to share that passion with them. And it really just wasn't happening. So I went to my math director at the time, and I said, "Sarah, you give me these good evaluations. You're saying I'm an effective teacher, but I'm really not getting that bang that I really want from my students. I want them to really enjoy it. How am I going to get them to do that?" And she started talking to me about this idea of discourse. And I said, "Well, I have my students talk, right? There's a ratio in my classroom. Students are doing a lot of the talking." She says, "Well, again, it's more than that, right?" And so she started explaining to me kind of what I'm about to talk about. And it really changed the way I looked at math and really thought about math. So there are a couple things when you think about discourse. There are two real main steps that we need. The first one is choosing an appropriate problem, right? Here's an example of a 5th grade problem that I would have given a few years ago. And right down here it says find the volume of the figure. So we're going to get a little interactive here. And what I want you all to do is for about 15 to 20 seconds, I just want you to turn and talk to the people around you about that answer right there. So go ahead, and then we'll come back.
90 get this
All right, let's bring it back real quick.
90.
So, in the interest of time, what I would love to do is have some people share out, but I'm just going to tell you some things that I kind of heard, to be honest with you. I heard a couple things. One, I heard some groups who were like, "I know the answer, that's easy, that's 90, I got it." Nice work.
Yeah.
There's some other people who are looking at it like, there's a formula there, I'm pretty sure I know what to do, or maybe I could do some stacking cubes. I heard some people talking about that. That could work. I had some other people that I was listening, they were like, "I'm not actually sure where to start here. I'm not sure what to do. That's 5th grade math. I haven't been there in a while," right? And that's fine. But what it comes down to is then you've got 3 types of groups of kids in your classroom right there. You've got the kids who are going to get the answer really quickly. You've got the kids who are, they can work through it. And then the kids who are just going to stare at you blankly and you're not going to get anything out of them, right? So, alternatively, here's the exact same figure, but there's a different frame on it. So now I've asked you to tell everything that you know about this figure. So again, I want to give you about 15 to 20 seconds, and I want you to turn and talk to the people around you, then we'll bring it back. Tell us everything you know about this figure. Go ahead.
It's a cube.
Cube, square, dotted line.
I should have won the ball.
I could be a teacher, dude. Really. Where's my benefits?
All right, let's bring it back again. And in the interest of, I would love to, see, look at that. You guys won't even stop talking about it now. That's what I'm talking about. So this is a great example of what I call a low floor, high ceiling question. And what that essentially means is that you can access it in a lot of different points. I heard people talking about, well, I know length and width, I know some things about this. I heard some people talking about what it kind of looks like. And there weren't as many people necessarily talking about volume, but then I also heard some people saying it's a cube right away, right? And now that's a misconception that we'd have to hash out. And through discourse, we could get there, because I actually heard some people talking about that. You had some people saying, well, it's a cube, and others saying, it's not. And it's not and that's something we'd address, right? Because it's got different dimensions, and they don't need to be the same for it to be a cube. So don't worry about it if you didn't get that one. Again, 5th grade math. So the second piece to this, the second step is really planning for the problem. Because if we're stepping away and we're no longer giving, and I stopped giving 30 problems, right? I stopped doing this, I do, we do, you do, and then I didn't just give 30 problems. What I started to do was give problems like that, really push the students. So I needed to start thinking about what was going to happen afterwards. And this is that afterwards. It's really planning for the problem. So it's, and I really regret how big that is now that I see that. Anticipating essentially is you're sitting there at your desk or you're collaborating with the teachers at your grade level and talking about what are some of the misconceptions that students are going to have. What are the errors that are going to happen? What are the solution paths that are correct that students are going to have? It's really thinking about and planning beforehand how the discussion is going to go, because you kind of know from the data that you have in your classroom, from maybe previous year's work, from talking with colleagues, you kind of know where the conversation can go. So really taking the time to anticipate and plan is huge, and you can take that time rather than making photocopies of 30 problems. You can use that time. Monitoring. Monitoring is kind of the second piece there, and it sounds a lot easier than it actually is, because this is where, as teachers, we kind of need to take a step back. And I've learned a lot of things from my wife over our 10 years together, but one of the things that I've learned from her that kind of relates to this is that at the beginning of our relationship, she used to come home and talk to me about an issue or a problem she might be having with work or colleague or a friend, and she'd say, "Oh man, I've got this issue going on, I just want to talk to you about it." And I, me being the problem-solving, helping individual, I said, "I got a solution for you," right? Well, it turns out that's not exactly what she wants. She doesn't want me to solve the problems, right? And I've learned that, don't worry. Now, I'm much better about it. But I translate that to my classroom. And what it kind of looks like is you need to take a step back, because when a student asks you a question, if you immediately answer, you're kind of taking away the thinking part from them. The key is to push them. So this is where those questions about discourse really come in and saying, well, why do you think that? What made you decide to do that? This is where that can really come in while you're monitoring and seeing what the students are doing. This third and fourth one are essentially you're starting to plan now for the discourse that's going to happen, the whole group discussion that's going to happen at the end. So you're starting to select which groups you're going to have talk. And then the sequencing piece is you need to have an order to what you're going to do. And why are you going to order them in that way? Because if you start with the group or an individual that has a perfect answer, all tied up, you're not really going to promote much discourse in your classroom, because people are just going to say, "Oh, that's the right answer, game over." The key is to start with either a misconception that a lot of students are having, or a solution path that many of the kids had in your classroom that may not be the most abstract necessarily. It might be a very concrete solution to a problem that you've come up with. And the key there is making sure you can connect those things. So the fifth piece then is that connection, right? So you've had your students sharing, and they're asking questions, they're learning from each other, they're building on one another and what the previous group did. And that's really key, because that's where the learning really takes place. Because as a facilitator, you can kind of push the discussion, but you want your students to do most of the sharing. So now the question gets asked, well, what do your students think about math now? And actually this group of students, this is a 4th grade class at one of the schools, and they left after this given problem, and they had lunch after this, and they walked away, and they were still talking about the problem. They were like, "I really want to know the answer. I really like the way that you solved this." And so I get to asking kids now, and I said, "Well, what do you think about the math?" "Oh, Mr. Fitz, you're a great teacher." Yeah, I don't care about that anymore. I already know that. I know you like me." How'd the lesson go? And I said, "Well, it was really challenging, but I liked it." And for me, that's really exciting, because that's what I've been trying to get with my students, to get them to be, problem solvers. And if they're excited about it, they're much more apt to be problem solvers. So the things to really remember here are choosing appropriate problems. Choosing appropriate problems, there are a lot of different resources out there. There's 3-act tasks, there's open middle problems, there's a plethora of resources with performance tasks and things like that that really push your instruction. The second piece, again, is that planning, right? Is taking that time to anticipate what's going to happen and kind of knowing how the discussion is going to go beforehand. And the last piece is allowing for that rich discussion, allowing them to ask the questions, allowing them to really push and build a really constructivist approach and build on what the day did previously. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That was awesome. My name is Diane Kelly. I'm the superintendent of schools in Revere, and I am really excited to introduce our next speaker, Karen Settle. She is one of our awesome, incredible, unbelievable, what would we do without these people, social workers at Seacoast High School in Revere, and she's going to talk to us today about how she helps our kids plan for their future. Karen?
Leonard Sweet said that the future is something that we create, and creating the future begins with a dream. I want you to think about what your dream was for the future. What did you want to do? While you're thinking back, think also about this. Have you had anyone ever tell you that your dream or goal for the future was unrealistic? How did that make you feel? Did you give up on your dream, or did you work harder to achieve it? What was your plan for achieving your dream? Your dream and your plan are the essence of the transition planning process. As a federal mandate, transition planning is a process that helps young adults work towards achieving their goals. It's for students who have an individual education program, an IEP. And these goals, their visions, their dreams, guide the entire transition process. Let me introduce you to Andrew, a student that I'm currently working with. Andrew is a 17-year-old sophomore at Seacoast High School, the alternative school in Revere, for students who have not been successful in traditional school setting. Andrew receives special education services for a specific learning disability and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Andrew's goal is to become a firefighter or a police and to live independently with a roommate. So now the question becomes, how are we going to help Andrew reach these goals? This question leads to many other questions. What do I already know about Andrew's strengths, his talents, his needs? What skills are going to be required for his vision? Why does Andrew want to become a firefighter or a police officer? Do I really think that Andrew's going to become a police officer or a firefighter? I don't really know. And honestly, it's really not important. Regardless of what I think of Andrew's vision, my role, our role, is to support his role, to embrace his enthusiasm, not to squelch it. Our role is to listen, to embrace, to support, to believe, and to be neutral. If I cannot, how can I help Andrew to be hopeful about his future? In Massachusetts, transition planning formally begins at age 14. But teachers can begin to encourage students to be conscious of what they love to do, what they're best at, and what the activities they enjoy doing at any age. This sets the foundations for students to begin to understand and to learn about themselves. Young children often have grandiose ideas about their future. I'm going to be in the NBA, I'm going to be president of the United States. How we as students respond has the ability to affect the student's future. It's not difficult to snuff out a dream before it even begins. Imagine if former President Barack Obama's teachers had told him that he could not be president or be successful. That being said, let me ask you a few more questions. Do you allow space for your students to discuss their dreams and visions? Are you able to provide guidance and support to your students? What if you don't agree with the student's vision? Remember that this is about the students, what the student wants for their future, and supporting them to explore their dreams in a proactive way. One way that we can help students achieve their dream is through transition assessments. Transition assessments are the foundation of helping students understand their strengths, their preferences, their interests, and their needs. Transition planning is like peeling an onion. Each layer leads to yet another layer that needs to be pulled away to see what lies beneath. Therefore, transition assessments should include multiple sources of data with a variety of different tools and activities. Through transition assessments, I worked with Andrew to further explore his interests and determine what skills he needs that will help him with his vision. I also wanted to understand what supports, what services, and what instruction he will need to meet his vision. To become a firefighter, a police officer, or to live independently. After reviewing the qualifications and the requirements to become a firefighter, and looking at the fire safety program at Bunker Hill Community College, Andrew decided that he no longer wanted to be a firefighter.
To further explore my interest in becoming a police officer, we scheduled an interview with a Revere police officer in hopes of setting up some sort of shadowing with him. I sent an email to the officer in charge of the police academy to learn more about the academy. I am working with a community-based job coach to help me develop career readiness skills. I am also applying to the Suffolk County Police Department's summer program to learn more about careers in law enforcement. I think I'm doing a lot of good for my goals right now.
What better way to explore your dreams and your goals than to try them out? Real experience is often a good teacher. As a result of these experiences, a student might decide that their dream and what they want to do might necessarily match up. It's far better for a student to come to the realization on their own that they're not well suited for a particular job, a particular career, or even a particular training program. Exploring and learning about oneself is really what's important. So we must allow our students to make choices with the help of caring adults, regardless of whether we agree with their choice or not. And I know this isn't always easy because we want our students to be successful. It's also really important that we teach them how to adapt when things do not go as they planned. I mentioned earlier that transition planning is mandated for students with an individual education program. But what about the students who do not have an IEP? It's not just about whether a student has an IEP or doesn't have an IEP, but it's supporting all of our students. So now the question becomes, what can you do? You can learn more and utilize tools. We can begin early and collaborate. We can teach skills and we can provide opportunities. So you're probably wondering, well, what does that look like? So to learn more, I would recommend these two sites. It's the Department of Education Transition Secondary website. They have a lot of thorough information on transition planning. I also like Youth on the Move, which is through UMass Boston. In terms of assessment tools and online tools. These are the three that I usually utilize with students. Mass CIS, Your Plan for the Future, and Naviance. And all three of these, you can do assessments, you can keep information like such as resume, and they all tailor to all ranges of students from elementary up to high school and adulthood. And I actually used all three of these when I was working with Andrew. You also want to begin early. As I mentioned, we can start as early as kindergarten because the goals and the skills that we need to teach our students, they can't be taught in 1 year. We also want to collaborate with the students, with the parents, with the other teachers, the special ed teachers, the administrators. We also want to think about what else we can do with the community because transition planning is a whole team event, a whole school event. We also want to teach our students skills, self-determination skills. We want to teach them how to set goals. We want to teach them how to advocate for themselves, how to make decisions, and how to solve problems. Additionally, we want to work with our students to provide opportunities. We want to provide opportunities for career preparation. We want to expose our students to different careers. We want to have guest speakers come into the classroom to talk to students about various careers, options for after high school. We can also have former students come back and talk about what it's like for life after high school. We can also organize career fairs and resource fairs to provide resources to our students and our parents. This is something we can do at the classroom level, at the school level, at the district level, and maybe it's something that even through the 5DP that we can organize. So I leave you with this. What would you need to change in your work with your students to allow them to develop their visions and their dreams one step at a time? How many students have been encouraged or will be encouraged by your unconditional support? As Thoreau said, we want our students to go confidently in the direction of their dreams and to live the life that they imagine. Thank you.
As a starting point for students to research modern-day genocides. I've gotten to work very closely with this team this year, and I am thrilled to welcome Amanda Judd, Brandy Coffey, Riley Dunn, and Mike Scarco.
Is this on? It is. Yeah. Good evening. I hope everyone's enjoying all the presentations so far. My name is Riley Dunn, and I'm, as Jennifer said, one of the freshman English teachers at Everett High School. Genocide starts with discrimination. Discrimination starts with bullying. Bullying starts with words. In all of our freshman classes this year, we read the memoir Night, written by Holocaust survivor Eli Wiesel. As our students read and explored the horrific truths and experiences of this genocide, we as teachers saw their passion and empathy develop for this topic. We, as teachers, a team of teachers, decided to take advantage of this passion. Because sometimes when you teach freshmen, it's a little rare to see the passion when they're in the classroom in front of you. After reading Night, a student brought to our attention a frightening realization. More than 80% of young people cannot name a single genocide since the Holocaust. Eli Wiesel's goal, and our goal now as students and teachers, was to create awareness to prevent future genocides. As a team of teachers, we decided to create a summative assignment in the form of a research project. We designed this assignment for the students to develop the following skills: creating effective thesis statements, identifying and evaluating credible sources, taking notes, including knowing the difference between summarizing, paraphrasing, writing an outline, and creating a powerful piece of writing that they were really proud to share. The basis for the assignment was to explore our essential question, which was why or how does genocide occur throughout history? This collaborative assignment across the freshman class allowed our students to join the 20% of young people who now know about genocides, and hopefully, given them the power, they will go increase that number to go above 20% now that they are the learners and they will teach other people. Amanda Judd will now go into the details on why we chose this specific assignment after we fix this technical difficulties.
Now, I'm sure many of you are wondering why we chose possibly the most depressing topic to assign to our students for the research component. But we ultimately felt that this particular topic, in addition to being tied to Elie Wiesel's night, offered 4 specific important ways to get our students to succeed in academic writing. The first of those reasons being authenticity. We felt that this assignment had a strong level of authenticity. We gave the students something with both a meaningful purpose and a strong audience. The purpose being not just ours and Elie Wiesel's of bringing awareness to genocide, but also inviting the community and other students to really take part in grasping this concept. And the audience being each other. It wasn't just another paper for the students to give to their teacher, nobody else sees it, but they really got to share it with each other. And ultimately, that, having each other as the audience encouraged them to become experts on their topic. And I pressed it. Okay, we're back. Sorry. Secondly, choice. This project we gave them choice, because as teachers we know that when students have choice, the student engagement level rises, their passion rises, they feel like they have more control over what they're doing. So as part of our assignment, we gave the students choice on which of the genocides they would like to research. So here we have a map of many of the 20th century genocides. Our list consisted of these genocides. I'm not pressing buttons, I swear. It consisted of these genocides, but also we gave the students the freedom, sorry.
All right, as your MCs for the evening, we're going to kind of fill in the gaps here. Now you're going to have to wait for this really exciting event. It was going to come after this, but here we are right now. So, you did not think that we would gather a room full of educators without giving you guys an assignment, so here it is. Turn and talk. What you're going to do, please, introduce yourself to someone that you may not know that's sitting near you, and have an immediate sort of takeaway. What did you like? How are things going? What can you immediately take back to your district or to your classroom from what you've seen so far? We'll give you, a couple minutes, and hopefully that'll be resolved by now. Thanks.
He was very good. I was like, what's this stuff doing? He was hilarious. Yeah, I'll tell you, he's not from here. You hear that accent? Yeah, he's from Midwest somewhere. I would bet that's like Chicago, Wisconsin. All right, let's go on.
Do you want us to fill in some time?
We're gonna try to get a secondary monitor.
If you need us to go up and talk about get out of here.
Maybe like grab the microphone and stuff. Yeah, we'll like share.
If you want us to talk about whatever you need us to do.
Okay, alright.
We're comfortable.
Here we go. It's been on for 2 hours.
Oh my god, dude. What am I even filming?
We're gonna finish up without the technology.
I'm terrible. Oh, how did I get this job? More like, why was I beared with this burden?
It must be so exciting for you to watch
Oh, this is miserable. I'm slowly dying on the inside. Oh yeah, it's being videotaped. Burned into my brain.
Well, I thank you for doing it. Someone had to do it.
Oh yeah. See you in a second.
If we could have everybody's attention, please. We're having a little technical difficulties with the picture, but I think the Ever group is going to continue with the sound. They might try and get the visuals up on the TV. If we can't, they do have some audio that you might be able to listen to. So without further ado, we're going to let them continue to present.
So I didn't break it, it wasn't my fault, so don't blame me. Now let's get back to our depressing topic about genocide. So I was mentioning the 4 qualities that our assignment has that really created academic writing. I talked about authenticity, and I was in the middle of talking about choice, and how we gave the students a list of genocides they could choose from. But what really shocked us was that our kids went off our list. They brought to us genocides that they had researched on their own that some of us knew very little about and had never heard of before. And it was really exciting to see, because it's something we weren't anticipating, and it just showed from the start how passionate they were becoming. The third quality of this assignment was relevance. We wanted to choose a research assignment that had relevance. If the students don't see the point in doing something, they aren't going to give it their best effort, as you guys know. The students understood the relevance, not just because of reading Night, but also because they're becoming aware that genocide is a problem in today's world, not just of Ali Wiesel's world. And so they saw that it was a modern problem in our society. But even more importantly, Everett's a really diverse community, and the relevance came from so many of our students being connected to these different countries where genocides took place. One of my students, Genesis, her dad fled El Salvador because he was a victim. So for her research paper, she interviewed him. And it was really educational for me to read her paper and read about her dad's firsthand experiences during the Salvadoran genocide. And finally, the fourth element that was really important to us to get our students to achieve is stance, and creating a stance, enabling our students to develop an authoritative stance on an academic topic. As they conducted their research and gained more knowledge on their genocide, they unknowingly became experts. In their papers, they were making independent and unique claims about the causes of genocide and how to solve this global issue. To our absolute delight, we found that the students were able to find their voice and authority. Through this, the students felt comfortable entering into the conversation about genocide, a conversation that was going on long before they knew about it, and that will continue to go on long after they finish their papers. Next, Brandy Coffey is going to tell you how we executed this project.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, so one of the most important first steps would be to provide the students with background information. We did that in several ways. First, all the 9th graders read Night by Ali Wiesel. In addition to that, our honor students had an independent reading, and that was Never Fall Down by Patricia McCormick, which was about the Cambodian genocide. We also had a guest speaker, Marcel Uwanenza, who is a survivor of the Rwandan genocide, and that was really inspirational for the students to hear his story. We also gave the students policy and theory about genocide to read, as well as several different articles about several different genocides. That way they were able to explore a lot of different options. After they had the background information, we were then ready to provide them with direct instruction and guided practice. We did that in many ways for research skills, such as we taught them how to find credible sources in order to answer their focused research questions. We often brought them to the library so they could explore those sources. We taught them the difference between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. That way they could incorporate that into their papers as well. We also taught them to write thesis statements. We actually did that after they did their research, so that way they could have more authenticity in their writing. We also taught them how to organize, synthesize, and construct outlines. They also learned soft skills such as time management, how to manage their time effectively to get the project done in a timely manner. They were also taught not only to revise their writing, but to revise their way of thinking as the project went on. Because what they thought and believed at the beginning often changed as they gathered more and more research. By the end of it, students really felt like they could speak with authority because of their knowledge on their topic, and they also had the tools to write their papers in order to enter the conversation. Now, in order to do all this, we had to work as a team, the 9th grade teachers. We collaborated together in several different ways. In meetings, informally in the hallway, we checked in on each other. We shared Google Docs. We kind of went by the theory, your student is my student. We helped each other's students out if they needed help. Dream work makes the teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. All right, next I'm going to introduce you to Mike Scarfo, who will show you how the students enter the conversation.
Thank you, Brandy. Good evening to everybody. As Brandy mentioned, I'm going to now share with you some student excerpts from their final written research projects. You'll hear the audio of the students reading off their papers, their research projects, or excerpts, excuse me, and hopefully they'll appear on the screen. I can see it.
Salvadoran genocide was one of the bloodiest wars in Central America. Although it's not really known, it was an atrocity that killed a lot of innocent people.
So in this excerpt, the student is taking on an authoritative stance on the topic, addressing to the 80% of people whom it's not really known that they don't know the other 80% of genocides that are out there. And they're coming from the perspective of someone that now does know.
Though it is believed that people are really good at heart, as Holocaust victim Anne Frank once wrote, many human beings are still capable of doing the extreme to the extent of killing and torturing their own kind in an inhumane way. An example of this cruel act would be the Cambodian genocide, a very gruesome event that not only devastated the people living in the territory, but those around it as well. It started as an idea but flourished into action, causing many to be traumatized. The Cambodian genocide is very important to history because millions of people perished and suffered during and after the genocide due to their beliefs, which is something we should learn from to make sure an event like this would never happen.
So in this second excerpt, the student recalls actually material from Diary of Anne Frank, which she read in 8th grade. And she's actually challenging the positivistic attitude that we have in today's society sometimes. And she's looking at the world honestly, and she actually feels empowered now to actually challenge the status quo.
Genocides in history mostly occur when a group of people, or even a single person, believe that their specific views on the world are correct. They wish to create peace and harmony among the people around them by eliminating anyone that does not fit their standard ideals. Genocides leave large amounts of devastation behind. Families are torn apart, countries are destroyed, and some cultures even face the point of extinction. The Cambodian genocide is only one example of how much one person can negatively affect the world on an extremely large scale. One person cannot stop a genocide from happening on their own, but if people all around the world work together, we get closer and closer to stopping the mass execution of our own kind.
So as you can see in this third excerpt here, students actually boldly taking an authoritative stance on the topic. She's not only offering a definition of the genocide, but she's actually pulling multiple sources and extrapolating her research to kind of develop a theory here. And she's also laying out an agenda for social change as well. And so, of course, we were very passionate about this topic, and our passion is infectious. Students have gotten fired up about their research, and they actually want to do something about it. Currently, there's a group planning a genocide awareness event. They're trying to raise awareness and bring their findings to the middle schools in the district. And then another group, actually, about 3 or 4 students, 2 of which you see here, approached me, and they want to start an anti-bullying club at Everett High School, which we will start running in the fall, and I'm very excited about. So as you can see, we're very proud of our students and how proactive and enthusiastic they have been in response to this project. And we now, and I'll actually turn it back over to Brandy, and so she can share with you how your students can be part of the 20%.
Thank you, Mike. So in closing, we are really excited to be able to share our project with the 5 districts. Please feel free to access any of our resources, which will be available to you. We have a vision that in the future we will be able to have inter-district collaborations between the students, which will bring an even greater awareness to the topic of genocide. Thank you very much.
That was great, you guys. Great resiliency putting up with all those glitches that we had. Congratulations to the Everett team. That was an awesome job. Next up, we have Damien DeMarco, who is also a teacher at Seacoast Alternative High School in Riviere. Damien is a computer science teacher, and he's going to talk to us about how to help the 21st century literacy of computer coding for all of our students. Damien?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Reduced to the small screen, isn't that the story of my life? How many millions of dollars did you pay for this place? Oops, sorry. Okay, great. I'm Damien. I work at Riviere Public Schools. And before I came here, I was a software engineer. I wrote code. And now I teach my students how to write code. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about code, what it is, why you should be interested in it, and how you can teach your students code in your classes as well. Code, what is it? It's how we get computers to do what we want them to do. We take commands, print, append, we bundle them up and send them down to the computer. This is what code looks like. If you were learning Java, a popular programming language, this would be the first thing you type in. Hello world. This announces your arrival to the programming community. This is code as well. This is some code that I wrote. This is in Visual Basic. Interestingly enough, all code is written in English. So if you're a Chinese programmer or a Bulgarian programmer or a Russian programmer, you're going to write your code in English. This is code as well. I wrote this as well. Code, it looks kind of scary, doesn't it? Enigmatic, kind of arcane. But in reality, this is what code looks like. This is a jet. It uses 18 million lines of code to fly and operate its weapon systems. 18 million, that's a lot of anything. You might be a little more familiar with code in this form. This is your smartphone, with all of those apps you love. There's the self-driving car at the top left. It can't turn left without human interaction. That might be a problem that one of your students could solve if they knew how to code. Some futuristic technology. We've got a vehicle-to-vehicle communication, cars talking to each other. We've got driverless flying drone taxis in Dubai. There's got to be plenty of code in there. There's your smart house with your smart fridge, which emails you when you text you when you run out of milk. There's a Roomba that runs around and cleans your house when you're not there, and it's all connected through the internet. General Electric, the same GE that Thomas Edison founded, where we used to buy our light bulbs, has reinvented itself as a technology company, moved to Boston, heavy into the internet, the industrial internet, Internet of Things. Not only do they want to connect your house up, they want to connect tractors and turbines and entire factories into their vision of the smart city, the smart world. Everything is connected through code. So why would you want to code? Well, we just mentioned everything runs on computers. Computers aren't going away. Code is kind of fun. You can really make something out of nothing. My family were stonemasons. My dad, who actually is sitting right over there, and my uncles, they made beautiful things. Marble fireplaces, really graceful walls. I went to bricklaying school myself, but I was never very good at it. But with code, I am the artist. I can create stuff that's beautiful and functional. You can make a lot of money if you know code. here's some of the most exciting companies anyone would ever want to work for. And look at those salaries, all 6 figures. And if you're a college graduate this year, look, software is at the top, making 65 plus as a starting salary. And jobs. There's so many jobs, they can't even fill them. So here we have extremely high-paying profession, and we have this major labor shortage. Shouldn't we be getting involved in this? I mean, we're education. We teach our kids to read, we teach our kids to write, we need to start teaching them to code. Because coding is indeed the 21st century literacy. If we want our kids to be able to create technology and grab a piece of the future and not let it pass them by, then we need to teach them how to code. Now, the best reason to learn how to code is that it will make you better looking. You will be more gorgeous than you are right now when you learn to code. This was me. And this is me after I learned to code. That's just a joke. That guy on the left, that is not me at all. So let me tell you a story. When I first became a high school teacher, I would use the same techniques that I used when I was an instructor at the Computer Career Institute, training housewives and fishermen and real estate agents to be entry-level programmers. I'd throw up a slide and I'd walk around and talk about all the technicalities, all the nuances. And I quickly learned that when I was speaking to adults, most of the time they listened to every word I said. And when I was speaking to high school kids, a lot of times they weren't listening to anything I said. So I needed a new approach. So I modeled, and I pre-taught, and I diversified, I scaffolded, I peer grouped the Nobel. They just weren't having any of it. One day I walked in class, threw my arms up and said, look, I just don't know what to do with you guys. Student stood up in the cold and said to me, Mr. DMAC, just give me the codes, just give me the codes. So I gave him the codes. Every day I walked in, gave him a program, increasingly difficult, increasingly complex. And wouldn't answer any questions, go up and look at my machine, see what I did. And something magical happened. They stopped talking. They were quiet, they were focused, they were engaged. I had finally found that secret to break through to my class. If you've been teaching for a long time, it's not much of a secret. You realize that when this is busy and occupied, that is not busy and occupied. Now, what Give Me the Codes really allowed me to do was flip my class and allow my students to experience their own learning first. Then we could examine and analyze and talk about how all this stuff worked. Now, that's a nice story, but I want to know what the real problem with teaching code in school is. There's only one of me. I need your help. You need to start teaching code in your classes as well. I brought along some stuff I want to show you. This is a project we did, brick wall. Of course, I'm a bricklayer. They're going to make a wall. We took something that students walked by every day without noticing. We deconstructed it. We looked at its discrete pieces. We put it back together. And what I like most about this project is we actually coded a brick. I think my family would be proud of me. Supposing you're a history teacher, middle school, high school history teacher, how am I going to get code in my room? Well, I mentioned to my class one time, did you know Revere was the site of the first naval battle of the American Revolution? Well, we looked it up. And before you know it, my class created this program that reenacted that historical scene. Ever tell you I met Bill Gates? Talked about programming all day, really cool guy. You're an English teacher. Get your kids to have a conversation with a famous person. Reenact a scene in one of your stories. Over lunch, one time, a math colleague expressed some frustration. The kids just don't get quadratics. Well, we coded it. Created a little app. They were able to punch in all kind of numbers. They were able to see what worked, what didn't work. We found a web program on a website that where we could plug those numbers in, and they looked at the graph. They comprehended what was incomprehensible. And if you're a science teacher, or you're a financial literacy teacher, you're an economics teacher, anything that has any kind of formula or calculation, coding is perfect. That's kind of like what the core of application development is. You collect input, you process the data, and you display it somehow. These are a bunch of widgets that we put together over the years. You got temperature conversions, you have statistics calculators, you've got the amount of time it's going to take you to become a millionaire. That's a very depressing app. You don't want to look at that. And finally, to while away that long morning, which is Thanksgiving, we're getting out at 11 o'clock, what do? Well, we talked about the Winthrop football game. So let's code something that will predict who's the winner. What I love about this app is Revere always wins. So, I'm in. I want to code my class. What do? I'm not a software engineer. I don't have a master's in computer science. I'm going to talk to you about 2 programming languages you can use where you can get your kids coding tomorrow. Both are web-based. Both do not involve any IT interaction. Very easy to use. The first one is Scratch, developed by MIT. This is block-based. Very intuitive. You just throw this up on a smart board, and you can't keep your kids in their seats. And the second one is Snap. And you use this with your older kids to get into a little bit more computational thinking. A lot of high school computer science teachers use this to train their kids for the AP computer science test. So, I hope my little talk has inspired you to start coding. I would love to hear that your superintendent walked into your class and heard your students say, "Give me the codes, give me the codes." You're the teacher. You need to spark that interest. Come on, get them coding. Who knows what's going to happen?
Thank you, Damien. Damien, can you do me a favor? Can you give me the codes to fix this? It's been an ongoing problem. And by the way, we spent $82 million. Not bad. It is a high school and middle school. I'm the Winthrop superintendent, Joe Macero. I also taught in Everett many years ago and was the principal in Revere. So 3 out of 5 is not bad. 5-district partnership. But I'm pleased to introduce a team of educators from the Arthur T. Cummings Elementary School who will share their approach to guided math in the classroom. Please welcome Principal Ryan Herity, Math Coach Don Lettieri, 3rd grade teacher Kristen Reynolds, and our special education teacher, Courtney Bino. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and it's great to be in front of the 5VP and sharing some things that we're doing in our school, which is right down the street. A couple of years ago, we had a problem. We started looking at our math data, and we realized that we needed to do something else. We had a lot of students that weren't making progress and weren't engaged in math. In fact, our classroom looked a little bit like this. Students were in rows, teachers were teaching chapter after chapter, and students weren't saying that they loved math and they weren't engaged. After 2 years, our math instruction now looks like this. If you see here, you'll see Mrs. Reynolds, one of our teachers who's over here. You'll see, and this is every classroom, every single day in our school. Students are engaged. Students are smiling. Students love math now a lot more than they did in the past. The traditional math classroom is mostly whole group. The teacher does most of the talking. It's textbook dependent. And the teacher is asking the question, did we cover the material? The guided math classroom, it's mostly small group, minimal whole group instruction. There's a lot of collaboration and discussion in the classroom. The teacher owns the standards, not the textbook. And the teacher always asks the question, are all students learning? So now the question is, does it work? Does this shift work? Because many teachers are afraid to break away from the whole group instruction and the rows because they're not sure if it will work. Well, it works. This is a tool that we use to monitor our students, which we use for benchmark testing. It's called Scholastic Math Inventory. We did an assessment at the beginning of this year. This is our 3rd grade students. You'll see 40% of our students came in the red. That's the below basic category, similar to what you would call a warning category in MCAS. And only 18% of our students were proficient and 0% of our students were advanced. We retook that assessment in January, and our data looked like this. 57% of our students were either advanced or proficient, and only a small number of our students were in the warning category, and that was only in January. So now we're going to talk about how you get started. This is Latu.
So I'm going to talk to you about how we got started. So first we needed a goal, and our goal was to build a mathematical community. We needed to ignite passion for learning math. So we thought about what are our action steps? How do we ignite this passion? And we talked about our kids. We set high expectations for all of our learners. We got back to our data and we made judgments using that data. We talked about how we could group kids, and we also talked about the support that they needed to move forward. Another thing that was really important to us was building a culture of respect in the classroom. We knew that our kids needed to respect each other. We knew that our teachers needed to respect our children, and the children needed to respect the teacher. But we also knew that in order for this to work, that we had to make sure that we all respected the process. You know, we have a 90-minute math block. There was going to be a lot of independent work going on, and they had to value that learning time. They had to make sure that they were using the time wisely. And as teachers, we had to make sure that we weren't wasting their time, and we had to use our time wisely as well. Finally, we knew that in order to make this work, we had to create consistency during our math block, and we did this through using rules and procedures. We feel that one of the keys to success was building classroom routines. By establishing the classroom procedures to create consistency, we knew we had to take the time to lay a firm foundation. And although we were a little uncomfortable with this, we knew that it was going to take weeks. We knew that in order to make this successful, we had to step back and just really establish those firm routines and procedures, and that was going to take a lot of time. If we cut on that, if we skimped on that, we wouldn't be as successful as we wanted to be. So as a component of our guided learning block, we knew we were going to have workstations. And we talked about what kind of workstations were going to be most beneficial for our students. We knew that we needed to keep them engaged, and we also knew we needed to move them forward. One of the things that our students really struggle with is fact fluency. So we decided that we wanted to have a fact fluency station. Technology is really important in our school, and we also decided that a technology station would be important to use during our guided math block. And finally, we needed to have some kind of hands-on activities. So hands-on games and using manipulatives. Now, we also knew that because the kids were going to be working independently during these workstations, that we were going to have to establish rules and procedures about what it looks like when you're working in these stations. So when we got started, we would introduce one workstation. It usually took about a week to introduce the station, and during the course of the week, we might introduce a new math game or a new activity. And we did that as a whole group, and we made sure that the kids really understood what was expected of them when using these materials during the workstation time. Once the kids really understood the expectations of the workstations, we decided it was time that we could go into small groups. We created our small groups based on our data, And we started slow. We started pulling one small group at a time, while everybody else was working on workstations. And over the course of a couple of weeks, we started to rotate more small groups into our guided math time. And so by the end of about a month, we were ready to get the full guided math time up and rolling. And now Kristen's going to come and she's going to talk to us about what our guided math time looks like now.
So I teach in a third grade classroom with 27 students. 14 of them are ELLs, 2 are on an IEP, and 7 of them are remedial readers. So I really needed to find, I really jumped on board with this guided math as a way to differentiate the math instruction for my students. Our math is a 90-minute block. The first 10 minutes is a launch, a math talk, or a review of the previous lesson the day before. Then I do maximum 30-minute whole group lesson based on a standard that we're going to address that day. And then with an interventionist that comes into my room, I do 2 rotations of 20 to 25 minutes each. So all children are seen every day in one of those groups. During the time when the children aren't working with me, they're working in the workstations that were mentioned. The groups are created based on assessment, so they're leveled groups based on what needs the children have in those standards. Here's an example of what one of the workstations looks like, and I'm especially excited about this picture because the girl in yellow has only been in this country for about 3 weeks, and she's playing a math game and highly involved in the lesson using Google Translate on the iPad. The 2 children are able to speak to each other using Google Translate. So in order to set up those rotations with my interventionist, we plan weekly. And we set up, we do lesson plans that would have looked better on the big screen, you would have been able to see better. But, so it lines out what the whole group, what the lunch will be every morning, what the whole group lesson will be, what standard is going to be addressed. And then it outlines in red what I'm going to teach my small groups, and in green what my interventionist will teach to her small groups. The yellow is an outline of what the children will be doing when they're in their work groups, when they're not working with the teacher, the yellow and the beige. So they have different rotations to go through throughout the day. Some of them are, like Don said, computer-based, some of them are games, some of them are different activities. Every day I post on the board a rotation chart. The children all know what group they're in, color-based, and so they know exactly what's going to happen throughout the 90-minute day, what the whole group will be, what teacher they'll rotate through with their small group, and then what they'll do in their independent work. The big benefits that I've seen for guided math compared to a whole group 90-minute math lesson is that the kids are really engaged, they really like math, and each child receives individual attention. I really feel like I can see the strengths and weaknesses of every child every day on each standard. The kids really love being in the small groups, and if for some reason we're not going to have small groups on the day, everyone goes, oh, really? Why can't we have small groups? The children can't hide. Every child has to participate every day. In a 90-minute whole group lesson, you have 6 or 7 kids that are always raising their hand, and this way you get everybody involved. The math talk or math dialogue that was mentioned earlier is happening all the time with open-ended questions and what do you notice about this problem and those type of questions. And another benefit for third graders who tend to need to move a lot is they move around every 20 minutes. So they're going from workstation to independent work to small group work, and they're moving around the room. They're not sitting for 90 minutes. So that is definitely something that a lot of kids need. Next, Courtney's going to talk about what guided math looks like in the special ed classroom.
A little bit shorter than my colleagues, so I got to pull this down a little bit. So in the special education classroom, I work in a resource room. My max group is about 6 kids, and in some cases, we do work on grade level concepts, but we do address learning gaps and also below grade level needs. The special thing about guided math is that my classroom can now relate to the general education classrooms. We are doing the same lesson plans and we are doing the same rotations. I use a lot of the materials the gen ed classrooms are using. I teach 5th grade math, and I can go to the 3rd grade teachers and ask them what they're doing. And it's been really helpful, and it also gives my children the opportunity to relate to their classmates. As far as using SRI, that's one of the resources I use in order to make my stations as well as my groups. After the students take SRI, there are recommendations that are given to you for each individual student, even if you have a 25-student classroom. And if you look at the far right, it gives you the state standards that they're struggling on. So as you can see, this student was a 3rd grade student, but you can see that there's 2nd grade standards, there's 1st grade standards, and there's kindergarten. We've been noticing that using this SRI program, that a lot of the students in even the general education classrooms are getting these below grade level standards. So the rotations allow us to address these needs and also work on the grade level standards in the classroom. One of the resources that Dawn has shared with our entire school, which I think would be very, very beneficial, is the coherence map. So as you can see, you go to the coherence map and you select a grade level. And after you select the grade level, it gives you all the domains that you can choose from. After that, you can select a domain and it gives you all of the standards within that domain. And then you can map that standard. So this is really important for our struggling students, especially in the resource room. You can look at the standard and you can go back to the prerequisite. So if you click on all the way to the left, it brings you back to the grade 2 prerequisite. And then you can go all the way back to kindergarten if you need to. And you can build their skills all the way back up. So as you can see, all the way to the right is actually the 4th grade standard. So if you have a station that you want to challenge your students, you can use those standards in order to develop your lesson plans or develop a challenge station, whatever you need to do. I'm going to hand it back over to Ryan to close this.
This was originally a 90-minute presentation that was shrunk to 10 minutes, so thank you very much for your attention being part of this. We really believe that the best professional development is going to other schools and visiting other places. So we'd like to invite anyone that would like to come and see our school and walk through and be a part of our classrooms. We welcome you. I think that's what's great about the 5DP is our collaboration. And we'd also like to come and visit your schools and see all the great things that you're doing. So thank you for your time. Have a great night.
Good evening.
Now it is, right? Good evening. I'm Mary Burke, the superintendent in the Chelsea Public Schools. Cove, where are you? Oh, Cove, you know you're doing this again next year, right? Right? Okay. Just wanted to make sure we publicly stated that. Tonight absolutely is such an honor to be here because for us, this is about honoring and celebrating the remarkable, remarkable educators that are in each and every one of our districts. Our educators make up this unbelievably noble profession that we are so proud of. And so the educators that we're celebrating tonight, the educators that are showcasing tonight are only a small representation of all the educators that do such wonderful work in our districts. These educators are the innovators, These educators are the educational entrepreneurs. Our educators make ideas work. And so that's what we've seen tonight. We've seen the educators putting ideas into action, into work, and succeeding, and sharing it with us. So, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce one of Chelsea's educational entrepreneurs, one of Chelsea's innovators, Chelsea High School ELL teacher from the Bridge Academy, Sarah Harrington. And she is here. She's an ELL teacher for the Social Studies and History, and she's here to talk about the wonderful after-school program that she developed, and in a moment she's also going to introduce the Pride of Chelsea for our students. Sarah.
I was nearing the end of my 5th year as a high school EL history teacher when one of my students called me over because he couldn't remember how to say a word in English. He began describing this word using his new English vocabulary, and my deciphering skills are usually pretty on point, but it was the end of the year and I was failing. And so I asked him if he could just tell me this word in Spanish, and we could translate. He replied, "I don't remember," and nonchalantly shrugged his shoulders, said, "Miss, I think I'm forgetting my Spanish." And then the bell rang. That was last year. All summer I racked my brain about ways my students can use their academic Spanish in an academic setting without it feeling forced or superficial. So I created a program where my ELL students teach the high school teachers how to speak, read, and write in Spanish. Before I get into more of the why and how, I'm going to show a quick video clip so you can see this, how this class works in action.
So what was it
Bueno, entonado ha terminado. Ok, para decir cuál es el nombre de juega pelota. De José juega pelota. Bien, bien. ¿Cuál es el pronombre Miss You de María hace tarea para la escuela? Miss Reyes. ¿Cuál es el pronombre para Carlos y Juan juegan tenis para poder ganar?
Ellos juegan tenis para poder ganar. I'm currently in my 6th year teaching ELL's history in the Bridge Academy at Chelsea High School, and I'm constantly getting new students. Just last Thursday, I got 3 in one class. Never mind the rest of the week or the month. I rely on my students' home language a lot, especially during those first interactions. I want my students to feel safe, welcomed, and comfortable in my classroom. Many studies have shown that maintaining and improving literacy in the home language can positively affect literacy in the second language. And yet, my students often feel that they need to make a choice, either English or Spanish. I want my students' literacy and cultural backgrounds to feel valued